Make of thyself that which ye desire, be it a lord, be it a god.
Elden Ring is a dark fantasy action role-playing game developed by From Software, the makers of the hugely successful Dark Souls series. When it was revealed at E3 2019, it swiftly climbed to the top of several most anticipated lists, owing mostly to Game of Thrones author George R.R. Martin's participation. Elden Ring's environment is loaded with ancient ruins to explore and fearsome opponents to defeat, but it's a lot more sweeping and broad this time, allowing you to explore it on foot or horseback. It's simple to explain Elden Ring, but it's more difficult to express the specific feeling of playing it. Elden Ring is an open-world action RPG in general. You make your own character and then go exploring, defeating a range of conventional adversaries and terrifying bosses along the way. You may find new gear and equipment, level up your characteristics to improve your melee, ranged, or magical fighting, and mount a horse to explore the dark fantasy lands between. If you've played a Souls game before, the gameplay should seem very familiar at this point. One aspect of the experience is creating your ideal character by allocating traits and upgrading equipment. Another is mastering the gratifying and lethal battle. Elden Ring, like most From Software games, is an extremely challenging experience. Most foes can kill you in a few strikes, whereas bosses usually only need one or two. Foes will swarm you from behind cover, seize you from behind cover, rise up from the ground, or swoop down from above. Your healing options are restricted, and nothing happens instantly, from melee strikes to magical missiles to life-saving dodges. On the other hand, mastering the battle seems both fair and immensely fulfilling. Stats are important in your Elden Ring success, but so are your personal abilities, which will organically develop as you play. All of this is enhanced by wonderful chunky animations and visuals. Testing the game on PC at 4K, I can say that it is by far the best looking From Software game I've seen in a long time. Character models in the game don't appear as developed, especially up close, as those in RPGs like The Outer Worlds and Cyberpunk 2077. The creatures and animals you face, on the other hand, are stunning, with each model sporting incredibly realistic textures and great movements. Dragons wobble with their weight, and you can feel the map tremble as they breathe fire. Even simple foes, such as demi-humans, act and move how you'd expect them to, launching chaotic animalistic blows at you anytime you're unfortunate enough to be encircled by a mob of them. The map and level design are likewise excellent, with each component utilizing From Software's superb multi-level design philosophy. George R.R. Martin, the acclaimed science fiction novelist, helped develop Elden Ring's mythology, and his impact on the game is palpable. The lands between are a rich, sophisticated fantasy universe with a complex cast of characters and a sense that the existing quo is not unchangeable. Depending on your gaming choices, you might end up with one of several Elden Ring endings. The storyline isn't as crucial in this game as it is in many other From Software games, since the environment and characters make a stronger effect. Still, if you're curious, the Elden Ring is a powerful artifact that was shattered into 4 parts following a catastrophic conflict known as the Shattering. 4 demigods each grabbed a piece of the ring, and as a result, each became dark and twisted. You take on the role of a Tarnished, an immortal undead warrior capable of defeating the demigods, reshaping the ring, and becoming an Elden Lord. As is his wont, From Software crams a lot of lore into scarce dialogue snippets, object descriptions, and even the level design itself. Elden Ring, on the other hand, is a little easier to understand than past Souls games owing to a place called the Round Table Hold, where you may meet a variety of different adventurers and obtain little information dumps about the game's big bosses. It's a clever, optional notion that helps make the stakes of every major boss fight obvious and understandable. Combat in Elden Ring is centered on 3 pillars: melee, defensive play, and ranged strikes. Even if your intention is to play a committed wizard or archer, it may be beneficial to sometimes engage in melee combat, if for no other reason than to save your focus points and arrows. The first thing you need to understand is the link between focus points and stamina. The blue bar represents focus points, and the green bar represents stamina. Almost all skills need stamina, while unique abilities such as magic and ashes of war frequently use focus points. If you run out of focus points, consume your flask of cerulean tears to refill it. If you run out of stamina, taking a second to rest will immediately restore it. Sprinting, avoiding, blocking, and other similar acts all deplete stamina. So it's important to know when to stand back from a battle scenario and let it recuperate. Elden Ring is also brimming with things that help mitigate some of the drawbacks of both focus points and stamina. Turtleneck consumables, for example, speed up the rate at which your stamina regenerates. There are other things that reduce the amount of focus points consumed by your spells and attacks. It is critical to pay close attention to how quickly your strikes deplete your stamina. You may be killed if you run out of stamina at the wrong time and badly need to dodge. Even while wearing heavy armor, foes in Elden Ring may attack hard. Managing incoming damage is difficult and essential in Spirits games, and Elden Ring is no exception. Yes, it is totally worth getting if you appreciate challenging open-world RPGs. A game's replayability is a big motivation to buy it. Most people who play it will probably just play it once, but other individuals, like us, like playing it twice, 3 times, or even 4 times. The open-world zones are enormous. Every small place you examine appears to have something. You may be walking through a forest and come into a little tunnel within some rocks. You go investigate and discover that it is a big cave system with a boss at the end. You may even be exploring and come across a completely new location. There are so many equipment items to get in the game that deciding what to utilize might be tough. There are clearly meta weapons in the game, but you may use whatever you want. Every boss and monster has an armor set that you may obtain, as well as weapons that you can obtain. The game has nearly 120 bosses, making Dark Souls 2 appear little in contrast with 42 bosses. There are some duplicates, which is fair given the sheer number of monsters, but each encounter seems distinct in its own way. This game has so many bosses that any region you visit will have numerous bosses. This game has a large community behind it. The game received a lot of attention before to its release, and the community feels it lives up to the anticipation. Most people believe that this game is even better than the hoopla that surrounded it. The game has over 50,000 concurrent players on Steam alone, and this number fluctuates depending on the day of the week. It's a From Software game, so you should expect it to be difficult. There is no easy setting for inexperienced players, therefore you must persevere. If you can't handle these sorts of games, this one could be simpler to get into than Dark Souls 3. If you are having a disagreement with a boss or an adversary, you can just leave and return later. Because of the abundance of material, this game is the most approachable to beginner players. It's not a simple game, but it's clearly easier than the other From Software titles. If you prefer games like Dark Souls, Bloodborne, or even Sekiro, you might appreciate Elden Ring. It is essentially a synthesis of all From Software games, and it just works. If it looks like fun, don't be afraid to buy it and try it out for yourself. You can wind up pouring 100 hours into the game and not even realize it.